Hi, it's Morgan from the CheekyHomemaker.com. Today I'm going to show you my sneaky cheeseburger recipe. I always make sure that my children do eat some vegetables, but it is a battle, always, for most of us at least. So I also sneak them into things where they're not expecting them. So my 4-year-old loves a good cheeseburger, and I'm going to show you how I make that at home with a little bit. I'm going to sneak some mushrooms, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of apple, kiwi, and spinach into there also. So the first thing, one of the ways I like to sneak a lot of vegetables into my kids is baby food. So this particular baby food is beech nut organic baby food, and I've never actually fed my kids baby food with a spoon. I'm a big believer in baby-led weaning, so they kind of start off with solids right away, but I use a lot of baby food in my cooking. The other thing we're going to sneak into these cheeseburgers is mushrooms. Mushrooms have a bunch of iron in them. They're very good for you, and they're one of the things that children kind of are normally a little put off by. So you never even know they're in the cheeseburger. If you personally aren't a big fan of mushrooms, you will not taste them. It just adds a little bit of that good umami flavor that we all love so much. But otherwise, you don't even know they're there. So here we go. First, we start with 1 pound to 1 1/3 pounds of ground beef. Now, the reason the recipe varies is because I buy my organic ground beef at Costco, and their packages are actually 1 1/3 pounds. It's an amazing deal. I highly recommend you shop there for all meats, but if you're shopping at the grocery store, 1 pound will work just fine for this recipe also. You'll just have a little bit less meat to go around. So the next thing we're going to do is dice up the mushrooms so we can add those. I've diced up 2 mushrooms here. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind about mushrooms is what you see is not necessarily what you get when it comes to size. So the dice that I did, the pieces might look a little bit on the large side when you think about trying to hide them in a burger, but mushrooms shrink up a lot when they cook. They're full of water, so the water seeps out as they're cooking and they shrink down, and you really won't even notice them in this cheeseburger. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my baby food. You can use whatever flavor you'd like of this. I tend to choose more savory flavors when I'm doing something like sneaking them into a ground beef patty, but I also sometimes like to add a little bit of sweetness into my beef patties, so you can go either way with that. If I'm sneaking it into something like mac and cheese, then it's all about color. So you're going to want to choose something like a carrot or a butternut squash, something in the yellow or orange family. Okay, so I put in the full jar of baby food, and the next thing we need to add is some seasoning. I'm going to be doing a full teaspoon of onion powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of ground mustard, I'm adding a full teaspoon of garlic powder, half teaspoon of salt, and a good amount of black pepper. I did about 8 twists of fresh ground. Now, the next thing you're going to want to add is some binders. So a lot of times all I do is 1 egg, but if I'm trying to really sneak the veggies in and I'm adding a full jar of the baby food, that adds a little bit of liquid in there. So in addition to that, I'm going to be throwing in some breadcrumbs. So there's my egg. Now the breadcrumbs I'm using are leftover sourdough bread from a sourdough starter that did not go as planned. So the bread wasn't great. I just pulsed these in. I have a little mini prep Cuisinart food processor, and I keep them in the freezer. So anytime I need breadcrumbs, I have homemade fresh breadcrumbs. There's no fillers or additives or anything weird in these. So I'm doing 1/4 cup of breadcrumbs. And now is my new secret ingredient that I've just been doing recently. This could be it. You could cook these and they would be delicious. However, I have found that if you add just a little bit of barbecue sauce in there, it caramelizes the meat just a little bit while they're cooking, and it adds that, what is that flavor? I don't know how else to describe it other than that. It's a little bit of sweetness, but it's just a little more almost of that umami flavor that I love very much whenever I'm eating meat. So I'm going to be just using an organic, original recipe barbecue sauce from the grocery store. Now, the downside is it does have some sugar in it. So if you're opposed to sugar, of course, you could omit the barbecue sauce. If you are going gluten-free, you do not have to put the breadcrumbs in. You definitely do need the egg. The breadcrumbs are just an additional binder so that the burger patties don't end up a little bit too difficult to handle when you're moving them onto the grill. This I'm just going to eyeball. I'm going to say that's maybe, probably around an 1/8 cup. Now I'm just taking my rings off because I prefer to just mix these right up with my hands. So make sure you break up that egg yolk. Now, since you added the breadcrumbs in there, you do want to make sure you don't over mix. Things can become a little bit tough if you do that, kind of like a meatloaf. You just want to make sure that you combine everything and then stop mixing. Now it's time to form our burger patties. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. They make little presses if you want your burger patties to be perfectly round. I personally prefer to do it by hand, and I just kind of do bigger ones for the adults and smaller ones for the kiddos. So the first thing I like to do is kind of break it down into balls, so I kind of know how many patties I have. So I do that right in the bowl. Next, you just squash your ball down and start forming it into a patty. One thing to remember is on the grill, the burgers will shrink up. They'll shrink into themselves. So I tend to make them nice and wide, wider than I want them, to accommodate for that. There's nothing worse than having to bite a cheeseburger and having all bun on the edges and no burger, and then just a hockey puck, tall little burger in the center. So this will be one of the adult patties. It's nice and large. Alright, so now I have my burger patties. They're ready to grill. So I'm going to go fire up my grill, and you cook them just like any other cheeseburger, and I'll be back once they're cooked to show you the finished product. Alright, so I served the cheeseburgers with a little bit of cheese on top, of course, and we're doing them without buns to keep them a little bit more on the healthy side. We've got some ketchup and some steamed broccoli with a little bit of butter and garlic salt on it. This is my daughter, Charlotte. How's dinner, babe?
Good.
Yeah?
Go.
I hope you enjoyed my sneaky cheeseburgers. I'll leave a link below where you can get a printable recipe. We should be friends, so don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel so we can keep in touch. You can also find me on Pinterest, Facebook, and Instagram at The Cheeky Homemaker and at thecheekyhomemaker.com. Talk to you soon. Bye.